All right. Hey, everyone. Cool. Hey, Mark here, Mark P Markets. Thank you very much for watching me. I'm sorry I'm running a little bit behind. I really appreciate your patience very much. Let me adjust this microphone here a little bit so I can, so you guys can hear me a little bit better. I'm going to make this screen bigger, so don't worry. And so let's get started. I want to welcome you all. Again, thank you for joining me. So in case you're new to the stream, let me just quickly explain how this works. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the economic calendar. Okay, there's not much to talk about here today, so we're going to be real quick on that. Then I'm going to talk about the topic of today's stream, which is how to manage this swing trade long idea on Bitcoin that I shared the other day on the forum. I'll explain all that. Okay, but most of you are aware of the trade. So the idea here today is for me to show you how to manage this trade since it's gone right into the green. Okay, so it doesn't mean that this trade is going to work out perfectly. Something can change, and I want you to be aware of what can change and how to adjust for that. Again, this game is about managing risk. It's not about profits. Okay, so if you're still stuck on the profits, you're never going to win. Okay, so we're going to talk about that, and then I'm going to answer some of your questions. Okay, so if you have a question about an altcoin or a stock or whatever, please share it in the channel now. Also, as a fun fact, if you want to share what country or what city you're from, that's always cool. I'm streaming from the greater New York City area, also known as Northern New Jersey. And then before we conclude this session, I'm going to share a trade idea that was generated by my trade scanner earlier today. So you're going to have to stick around for the whole stream. All right. So for those of you that like to cut off after I talk about the Bitcoin portion, if you want the trade idea, you should stick around. Okay. And we're going to talk about how that trade idea is relevant or conflicting to the Bitcoin long that I called. All right. So let's get into that, shall we? I'm going to just make an adjustment here so we can get I can see what's going on here with my TradingView people. I am simulcasting. All right, so let me just refresh this page. By the way, if you are watching me on TradingView and you can't see me, simply refresh the screen, okay? And that usually solves the problem. Okay, so I see you guys there. All right, so again, TradingView people, now would be a good time to put your questions in the channel. All right, let me just move this over here so I can see what is going on. All right, you guys, cool. And by the way, if you have any questions for me during the stream or whatever, and I'm not able to answer your question, you can always reach me at mark@markpmarkets.com. You can see the link here on the picture. Also, make sure to check the links in my description. I have a lot of interesting things going on, and that and check that as well. Let me know if you have any questions. Now, one other thing I want to mention here real quick is, okay, let me just make sure that this thing is working here. All right. So yeah, that's the best way to reach me. All right. So let's get this thing started here. Okay, hold on. Let me just put this slide up. Just give me a second and we'll get this thing going. All right. So this is for educational purposes only. For investment advice, please consult a licensed investment advisor. All right, cool. Now again, oh yeah, also if you'd like to help out the channel, please press the like button, please press the boost button, please subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to see more educational content, I am working on it. I will eventually start getting it published. Okay, so that's what I have in store for the YouTube channel in particular. So do me a favor, press that subscribe button. Let YouTube know that you do appreciate my content, okay? And I appreciate that. Thank you in advance. All right, so now on this chart here, I'm actually, for now, I'll leave this thing on here, the ATR. We'll talk about that in a moment because we're going to just note the number, okay? But before we talk about the chart, it's time to get into the economic calendar. I don't need to make the chart bigger for that, okay? So let's talk about the economic calendar. Who has been looking at it? Now, again, there's an economic calendar on TradingView. There are many economic calendars. It does not matter which one you use, okay? You're looking for important economic events that are on the schedule. So anything this week you guys want to mention to me? See, this week's important notices are U.S. sales and Powell. Oh yeah, when does Powell speak? Because he wasn't on my calendar. What date? You have the date and the time? Because I have not seen his name. I saw another Fed speaker, but not his name. So let me know the date and time on that one. And if he wasn't on my calendar, then it must not be an important speech. But I mean, Chairman Powell is important. So if he's speaking, it's probably a good idea to know when and what day and what time. May 19th. Okay. So that's Friday. Do you have a time stamp on that? That's good to know because he wasn't on my calendar. All right. Any other news events anyone wants to mention real quick? Let's see, and this is an important exercise. You know why? A lot of times people will give me news events that are not important, right? And then I can tell you, hey, it's not that important. Don't worry about it. Okay, so 5 o'clock on Friday, is that Eastern time, Johan? 5 o'clock, Chairman Powell speaks. Okay, that's news to me. Thank you for pointing that out, okay, because that wasn't on my calendar. Oh, South Africa time. Okay, so I don't know. Okay, so thank you, Chris. Thank you. 11 a.m. Eastern time. Good to know. I don't know how I missed that on my calendar. Usually I spot him right away. Okay, so good piece of information. Now, the other event that I had not seen anyone has not put here, the other event is retail sales, US, and that's tomorrow, okay? Usually that's tomorrow, the 16th, right? So retail sales is usually it's either 8:30 a.m. Eastern time or it's 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. It's one of those times. Double check on the calendar. Now that's particularly important if you're involved in stocks, okay, or something like S&Ps, because that's really the market that it can affect, okay? So be aware of that. Otherwise, on the calendar that I was looking at, there was really nothing else to talk about. There were some events here and there, but they don't carry any weight in terms of global relevance, all right? Meaning it's not dollar, okay? The dollar is still the world reserve currency at this point, at least. And so economic news that revolves around that is what's going to carry all the weight, and that's what's going to move markets, right? That's what's going to move the S&Ps. That's what's going to move other global index products. That's what's going to move bonds. That's what's going to move the dollar, right? That's what we're interested in. And that moves everything else. And that can also move Bitcoin. So you want to be aware of these events so that you can mitigate risk. So there's really not much else to talk about. Okay, thank you, Dom. 8:30 Eastern time tomorrow is US retail sales. So again, that could set the tone for the day. This is particularly important for day traders as well, okay? This can affect your day if you're working on those smaller time frames. So good to be aware of. Okay, thank you. Thank you, you guys. You guys are definitely on top of things. Okay, so that's the economic calendar. Let's move along. Okay, so I don't see anyone on TradingView. Are you guys paying attention to me over there? I don't see one guy on there. Come on, man. So I'm a wizard, by the way. Come on, I need to make people appear. Maybe I can use my magical powers. I'm going to have to look at the instructional manual because I don't know, this wizard thing, I don't know. The magic hasn't been working. So anyway, all right, you guys, let's get into the next topic here, and that is right this Bitcoin situation. Now, I'm going to make my chart bigger. Okay, hold on while I do that. All right, so now we have a bigger chart. You guys can see a little bit better. All right, now, important thing. The trade scanner, as you know, has been calling all kinds of trades, right? The trade scanner is my screener. Let's just call it that. It's a screener, and it follows certain criteria. Hey, Kiwi. Hi, nice to see you. All right, cool. I see some guys chiming in there on TradingView. Okay, cool. Good to see you guys. If you have a question about a stock or an altcoin, please share it in the channel. So when I get to that portion, I can answer your questions. So as I was saying, the trade scanner. Now, this thing, again, if you have questions about it, you can email me. But this thing has been calling a lot of longs over the recent week. I mean, it produces these big lists. It's been calling some shorts as well in the stock world. As far as the coins, because again, there are two channels. It's on my community, right? There are two channels in my community, in my Discord community, and that's where these signals are appearing. And they're basically a price and a timestamp and a message that comes along with it, like, you know, look for long setups or look for short setups, so you know which way you should be looking, right? So it called some interesting. It's been very bearish on the altcoins. The scanner has been very bearish. Now, it will not call Bitcoin short, but it's been calling other coins short, interestingly enough. Hey, Peter. So what's up with that, right? Shouldn't it be calling all of them short together? Well, we have a conflict. And when I was looking at my system chart, and Bitcoin is in a situation where the scanner is not going to call it long, right? It's not going to call it long because the momentum on the time frame that it's looking at is mixed, okay? So that's why I called it long, because it still fit my personal criteria. That's called using context. So because I have a greater scope than the scanner. The scanner can't account for everything, right? It can't account for FOMC meetings. It can't account for a quarterly report. It can't see these things. It can't see certain charting pieces of information, right? It can't account for them, but I can. So that's why on Saturday, I wrote an article on TradingView, which I'm sure many of you read. I see some people took that trade, and I outlined a trade idea in that article. Okay, so let's talk about that a little further. Now, before I expand this chart, I want you to take note of something. Okay, so pull your notebook out. There's a little number here on this ATR. You see this number, right? Write that number. The number is 1036. Write that number. Write that somewhere. Remember that number, 1036, because we're going to refer back to that. And I'm going to erase that little graph on the bottom there. Okay. Also, here, let me do something. Hold on a second. Let me adjust something. I want you to remember another number. Okay. Hold on. I'm going to give you that number in a second. So remember this number. All right. Hold on. Let me see. Where is this thing here? Hold on. Let me find it. Okay. Right here. Is that the one? Let's see. That's it right there. Okay. So remember this number, 71, or we can round that to 72. So remember 7141 or just 72. That's Ethereum. Okay. And that's the number on Ethereum. So we want to remember those numbers. All right. You guys got that? Okay. So I'm going to ask you guys again. We're going to refer back to that. So we have those numbers on Bitcoin and Ethereum. All right. Now, I'm going to erase this graph because we don't need this graph anymore. All right, let's talk about the Bitcoin trade, because today's title is called How to Manage the New Swing Trade Long. Okay, for beginners or people on my TradingView thing, how to manage the new long position that I called. So let's review that long position real quick. As you guys know, I called the long. I wrote the article about the long, and then I shared the long privately with my members. The prices were pretty much the same. It's just my members got more context, right, on the idea. And it was called here on that green candle, right? So the basis of that long, first of all, was this support zone. We never actually got into the zone. We touched it, okay? As you can see, we touched the zone. This zone, this blue square, that zone is a high probability reversal zone. And even though we never actually got into the zone, this square can still play an important role going forward. That's why you need to have this reference area on your chart, okay? So I saw the reversal occur. I saw the confirmation. I called the trade. These are classic reversals, okay? Because what happens in here, the reason why that occurs is because, again, you have a lot of frauds and a lot of morons and a lot of people who have no idea what they're doing, and their oscillator tells them to go short, okay? It tells them to go short right here because it's a breakout. It's a breakout trend. The trend is your friend, nonsense, blah, 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 okay? Not realizing or not accounting for the bigger picture context. Now, keep in mind, if you're having problems or you're confused, most likely it's because you have a misaligned perspective. And the reason why you have a misaligned perspective, most likely, is because of the garbage you consume. So if you consume fake gurus, if you consume other people on YouTube, which most of them are morons, I'm sorry, but they are. If you consume that garbage and they got you on the wrong side, you can only blame yourself, okay? Because you should not be consuming that garbage. It's especially with this group think mentality, that's the worst possible information you could possibly consume. So if you got short, I don't know what to tell you. Okay, this was a long. Why was it a long? Because again, context. This structure is bullish. Now, my point that I was actually trying to get to was, I don't know what news caused this corrective move here. Okay, I have no idea because I don't pay any attention to the news. When there's a move in the market, I'm only checking levels and I'm checking structure. That's all I check. I don't sit there and go to these stupid news websites. Oh, I need to know what's going on, because it's pointless. If the news is on a public website, that means the news is over and it's priced into the market. So I don't need to know the news. You're fooling yourself if you think that knowing the news is giving you value. I only look at the chart and I look at levels. It's all I'm interested in, right? So I saw the level, and again, I don't know what the news was. Many times when you follow a fraud, they're reacting to news, right? So I saw that, and again, for whatever reason, we were in that zone. I recognized it was a high probability area for a reversal. I was able to expect and say, you know what? Chances are buying activity will appear here, but I don't step in front of it. I wait, right? For this particular strategy, I wait, okay? I have another strategy where I don't wait, but that's something else, right? I'm not going to talk about that here. But in this particular strategy, I wait for the confirmation, and there it is, right? We got the inside bar, the green candle. That appeared on Saturday. Let me highlight that candle so you guys can see it bigger, okay? So this was the basis of the call right here. You can see my squiggly line that I drew. That was part of my report on Saturday, because this is my scenario expectation. This is what I am anticipating the market will do. It doesn't mean that the market will do it, but that's the plan. This is the idea, right? This is what I'm looking for. Now, so we got the setup, right? And I placed the stop, the take profit, right? And the stop loss order, and that was it, right? I figured out those numbers and sent the trade idea out. Now, you guys, I told you that number, right, for Bitcoin to remember. What was that number? Can anyone tell me? Hope you guys were paying attention, taking notes. What was that number that I told you guys to pay attention to? Because now we're gonna look at that number. Because what I'm gonna do here is basically I'm gonna put the trade idea together for you again, right? But using that number. Guys, tell me what the number was. 1036. Thank you. Someone's paying attention over here on TradingView. Thank you. Okay, now see 1036. Johan, you got it. That was the number. That's the ATR. That's the average true range. Okay, that's the ATR at the moment right now. That's all I'm interested in, right? So 1036 is the number. That was for Bitcoin. So that I was looking at that number the other day also when the market was here. It was close. Like that number doesn't change a whole lot, right, in this situation. So we can round this number. Okay, we can actually round this number to 1100. So my entry, as you guys know, was 27,150. Now, where did that number come from? How have I arrived at that number? Well, the candle had to close, right? The green candle closed. The high of that candle was 27,056. So I give it a little room, okay? And I came up with 27,150. Right, which basically occurred over the next candle, right? That's what got the market. That's what activated the trade, which was obviously on Sunday, now or yesterday. Now, at this time, right, when I'm looking at this candle and I have that entry, now I can use the ATR as a routine way to arrive at a stop loss and a take profit. Now, so what's 1100 minus 27,150? That's going to be 26,150. That's basically going to be like 26 even, right? Something like that. We can round that to like 26 even, which is where? Right around this area here. What is this? Yeah, I'm going to draw a line on 26 even. Okay. Here's 26 even, right about there. That's 26,102. That's a little higher. Let's just go to 26 even. That's basically 26 even. Okay, you guys see that? Now, my stop, of course, was a little lower than that. Okay, so was I using the ATR? No, you could use the ATR, which was basically your stop would go there, right? Now, this is a daily chart. So I'm not using 2 times the ATR. I'm using 1 times the ATR for the risk on this time frame. Does that make sense? Now, as far as to take profit, you can use 1.5 times ATR. So if we're going to round to 1100, what would that be? Like 1,500 points, something like that. Okay, something along those lines. So if we round that and we add 1,500 to 27,150, that's going to put us at like 28,850 or something like that, right? Or almost 29, around there. So let's just put that on the chart, right? Let's put, this is roughly what it is, roughly, okay? So 1650, you say. So is that the number, 1650? It's roughly something like that, right? So your risk is here, okay, and your reward is here. Now that's 1.5 times, that's 1.5 to 1 reward risk using the ATR. Now my actual orders were adjusted. All right, the ATR is a simple and routine way to come up with reasonable orders, and there's a higher probability that that ATR number is going to get reached, okay, compared to my more aggressive orders. So my actual stop is much lower, okay? It's at like what, 25, 8 something, I forget the exact number. It's 1,500 points, okay, is the stop, and the take profit is 3,000 points. So my take profit is like up here somewhere, okay? It's 3,150. Actually, no, it's higher than that. Let's see, 3,150 is up here somewhere. Let me put that on here. 3,150. This is where my take profit is, the actual order, right? That's where my followers, that's the order they're using. So what was the change there? How come I came up with those numbers? Why was I not using the ATR? So again, that's context. All right. That's what I teach my students about, context, because I have a greater scope than using something that's automatic like an ATR. But an ATR is a good place to start. Okay. So here we go. I'm looking for 30K. And the reason why is because generally, as we know, a strong market makes higher highs. Bitcoin is not a weak market, not yet. Now, I don't care about all the, if you want to argue fundamentally, well, gold and blah, 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 weak dollar, you can argue about that all you want. It doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is the general structure is bullish and a higher high is likely to follow. That is why I placed the take profit there. It's a probability game. That's all it is. So I look at probabilities over profits. That's the way that's what you should do. The novice looks at profits over everything else. Oh, I need to make money. I need to maximize, blah, 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 blah. That is why you all lose, okay? I look at probabilities versus risk. And my goal is to take the least amount of risk possible, right, for the highest probability of getting out green. That's my mindset. So now that takes me into how to manage this trade. All right, you guys following me so far? Any questions? Hey, Malad, how are you? What's Malad have to say over here? Hold on a second. Malad, I hope you got Mayor Bloomberg invited next time I come to the city. I better see Mayor Bloomberg there. Let's see. What is your perspective on S&P next 6 months? Okay. Just wanted to know your overall perspective on S&P. Sure. Okay, good question, Malad. No problem. No problem. Yeah, we'll talk about the S&P. Good question. S&P is an important market to keep an eye on. S&P, bonds, gold, dollar. You guys should be paying attention to these markets. I used to spend more time with them here, but you know what? Most people don't care. So I will answer your question, Malad. Thank you for asking. Just give me a minute while I complete this section here with this trade management. So you guys following me so far, right? You guys with me? By the way, these levels, these horizontal lines on my chart, as my students know, those are what I refer to as historical support or resistance levels, okay? I'm actually going to do a free webinar about how I arrive at those levels. It's going to be Wednesday the 24th, so I don't have a link for it here, so there's no link to click on, but an email is going to go out, I think, on Thursday. If you guys are interested in that, just stick around. Next week, I'll share the link to that webinar. It's free, and I am going to stream it on YouTube, okay? So I am going to do a training webinar. Again, it's free, a training webinar on how I arrive at these levels, which can be very helpful, all right, especially if you're new. So, so let's talk about now what to do after you're in this trade, because that's really the whole point of today's stream. So once you're in this trade, now a number of people took this trade from what I can see. You can see it went right into the green, right? That's ideal. Doesn't always work out this way, but when you want to see this thing go straight into the green. Now, here's the thing. This is just this line that I drew, right? That squiggly line. That is just one scenario of an infinite number of scenarios. This is ideal. This is what I would like to see, but it doesn't mean that the market is going to agree with me. Okay, the first thing you all need to accept is that markets are mostly random and that we don't know the future, and there's no way to know. Some new piece of information can come out tomorrow and Bitcoin could be pushing 24K. That's a possibility. Okay, so you must accept markets are mostly random, but not always random. That's called efficient markets hypothesis. You should look that up and be intimately familiar with it. By knowing that, by the way, you should be able to see all the nonsense that frauds try to sell you, because basically no one knows the future, right? And if someone comes out and says, well, my special system, there is no special system. And if they have one, they don't sell it. All right, anyway, so we're playing a probability game here, right? Especially over the shorter term. Now, it is possible to gauge, right, or assign a probability over, 5 minutes, over an hour, over a week, over 2 weeks. But once you get beyond like 2 weeks, things become 50-50, okay? Random, 50% chance either way, okay? So it's safe to assume that when you take a trade, chances are, there's a 50% chance that you're wrong. Keep that in mind. So I'm always looking for higher probability locations so that we can do better than 50%, right? And this is one of those locations. So now we're in the trade. What to do from here? Well, the first thing you have to do is you should know your one-to-one reward risk. Who can tell me what that is? Can anyone tell me what price is one-to-one reward risk? Who can tell me? If you want to give me an estimate, that's fine too. Who can tell me one-to-one reward risk? What is that price on Bitcoin from where you guys are long, right? Because I guess most of you guys are long from 27,150. If you followed my trade or somewhere around there, and we know the risk is typically anywhere from 1,200 to 1,500 points, right? What is the one-to-one reward risk? What price? Alex, you say, oh, and I forgot to say hi to a few of my people. All right, Alex from Romania, Roman, how are you? And Dom, I see, and Armin, Johan, forgot to say hi to my people. Chris, all right, cool. Solta, okay. Thank you for the kind words. Jade, okay, cool. Hello. 28,500, Alex says. All right, so that's you're right? So basically, anyone else? Anyone not agree with Alex? 28.5. Okay, Jade, you guys got it. So that you guys are correct. That's 1.5. That's 1-to-1. That means we risked 1,500 points or something like that, and now the market is in your favor, 1,500 points, right? Something like that. Your risk equals your reward at 1-to-1. Okay. Okay. So you guys got some general number. Okay. Cool. It doesn't have to be an exact number, but general idea. So here's the first lesson that I want to teach you. And that is when you reach 1-to-1, let's put it on the chart here. Let me draw a square on that price area. So you guys are saying 28,650. So let's say 28.5. Okay, where is that? 28.5. That's right around this line right here. Okay, that's right around there. That's around 28.5. So that means if the price gets there in the next day or so and you are at 1-to-1, what do you guys think you should do? You guys tell me. You guys teach this lesson. You guys tell me. What do you think you should do if price makes it 1-to-1? What do you think you should do? Any ideas? And there's no wrong answer. I just want to adjust your mindset, right? I mean, there's a lot of things you can do there. But what do you think would be a reasonable thing to do in terms of managing risk? Okay, Dom says take half. Okay, so look, see, so you guys are going straight for the profit. Okay, Peter says take some profit. Okay, Johan got it. Move your stop to break even. Move your stop to break even. See, everyone's taking partial profits, which, okay, there's nothing wrong with taking partials. There's nothing wrong with it. But keep in mind, so Jade says raise stop. Correct. You want to raise your stop. That's the first thing you want to do. We'll talk about taking profits in a moment, but see, none of you guys talked about moving your stop, except for a couple of people here, right? Move your stop to break even. That now gives you a risk-free trade. So you long from here, right, where this little rectangle is, you're long from there. Your stop is now moved to there. When the market reaches 1-to-1, you are now in a risk-free trade. You have mitigated your risk. If Bitcoin turns around for whatever reason and goes back and stops you out, you have lost nothing. Okay, you've given back profit. Some people, oh, I give back money. It's not your money, right? You haven't given back any of your own capital or your own whatever they call it, right? Principal, whatever. You gave back market money or profit. Okay. You moved to stop, Alex. All right. Well, it's a little early, but okay. Look, if you're mitigating risk, I'm not going to give you a hard time for mitigating risk. All right. If you're taking a reduced risk, but an ideal place or a routine place would be 1-to-1. That's the point of the lesson, right? 1-to-1. So now by having a risk-free trade, that gives you flexibility. Now, here's the thing about taking profit. Keep in mind this, by taking profits too quickly like that, that means you don't trust the trend or you don't trust yourself. You don't trust your judgment. The general structure is bullish, right? So probability says that price should be testing this area at least, right? That's in theory. There's a greater chance that price tests that area. So why take profits so soon? Let the market pay you. This is not a counter trend trade. If this was counter trend, yes, you should be quicker to take profits. But this is a with the trend trade. This is not counter trend. If some fool tells you that it is, then they're wrong because this is not the trend. That's the trend if you're a day trader. That's not the trend if you're a swing trader. Okay? You have to really understand trend and the nuance and the ways to categorize trend. Again, I teach that to my students. But my point is this, the general trend is bullish. If the general trend is bullish, then a higher high is more likely to happen. It doesn't mean that it will, it's just more likely. So that means why take profit off the table so quickly, right? So here's the thing about taking profit, and I'm glad you guys brought that up. So instead of just taking profit right away, you give the market a chance. Now, if the market gives you a hard time, so you get to 1-to-1, right? Let's say the market gets into that area and you're okay, cool. All right, we're at 1-to-1. I'm moving my stop to break even. I now have a risk-free trade. Okay, cool. That should be your routine every time, right? And now the market hesitates, right? Now the market, gives you a green candle here. Yeah, let me draw out what it can do for you, right? Market gives you a green candle, looks beautiful, right? Next candle gives you like a little red inside bar, and you're like, I don't know. I'm not sure about that candle. Okay. Next candle starts to work its way lower. Now, at that point, if you're still fooling around break even and you want to lock in something, maybe 30% of your profit, no problem. Take money off the table. Nothing wrong with that. Okay. That's assuming the market gives you a hard time. All right. And then maybe you just break even on the remainder of your position. But if the market never gives you a hard time, then you stay in, right? And maximize. That's when you maximize. All right. And maybe the market, maybe it works its way up into this area before it gives you a hard time. Okay. And then maybe there you say, okay, well, now we're at a resistance. Now I should take something off the table. Okay. Even if there's no sell signal or conflicting signal. Does that make sense to you guys? So now let me talk about the next thing here. All right. And that is that segues into what I'm getting into here is the conflicting signal. Because the conflicting signal can occur anywhere between where we are now and the resistance, right? The conflicting signal can occur anywhere in here, anywhere in there. You need to be prepared to adjust. That's why I told you first thing you should do is break even if you reach 1-to-1. Why not sooner? Because your chances of getting stopped out, if you raise your stop too quickly, you can get stopped out unnecessarily, right? So you have to give the market a chance. So if the market gives you a conflicting signal, let's say it's the next candle, okay? So let's say you're watching this thing and you're like, okay, everything's cool. And then tomorrow you get a candle, maybe retail sales comes out bad or whatever, and you get a candle that kind of looks like this, but then it closes red. And you're like, okay, made the higher high, but I don't know. I shouldn't see a red candle. Or maybe instead of a red candle, maybe what you get is something that looks like this. Right here, let me start a new shape here, right? Maybe you get a candle that looks like this, like this, all right? You get like one of these. Here, let me move this over like that. You see what I'm drawing there? See that? Let me move it this way, so it looks correct. Okay. See what I'm talking about there? It's a little fat, but don't worry about it. It has to exercise a little bit. All right, bad joke time. So you get a candle that looks like that, all right, in that area. That is not the candle you want to see if you're long, okay? That is a conflicting signal. That's a sell signal. Not only that, it's a lower high off of this potential resistance level right here, okay? So you see something like that, right? It's a pin bar. It's a bearish pin bar, Dom. We can call that a bearish pin bar. There are many names for that candle, but the generic name, bearish pin bar, okay? You don't want to see that. It's a reversal candle. And now if it's a doji, you know, that's not the same as a pin bar, right? If you get that's a doji. And that could be a problem also, but you don't have to be so quick on that one, right? The place where you have to make the adjustment is if it takes out the low, right? That becomes the sell signal. You understand? So that's where, okay, maybe at that point you may be at break even, okay, if that's the scenario that the market gives us over the next few days. But you need to make adjustments there. If this thing is green and it goes right back to break even, it might not be a bad idea to get out of the trade and break even. There's nothing wrong with break even. So let me give you an example. If you have 10 trades, right, and 9 of them break even, but the 10th one is a win, guess what? You're ahead, right? There's nothing wrong with break-even trades. But when a trade goes green, is like the first thing the trade does is goes green. Great, that gives you an opportunity to break even. So if this thing gives us a hard time over the next couple of days, I can't hold your hand. I can't tell you to do this. You have to be able to make these adjustments. And in order to make these adjustments with confidence, you have to have the correct mindset. So there's nothing wrong with break even, because guess what? If this thing goes back to break even, right, and you get out of it, all right, you know, it was a break even trade, whatever, okay? You have nothing at risk now, and then maybe the market produces a new long signal here, maybe. And that's another chance to get back in. That would be a great spot for a long signal, a new long signal. Why? Can anyone tell me? See if you guys are paying attention. Why would this area right here, this rectangle that I'm drawing here, why would that be a ideal area for a new long signal? Okay, if this one fails, why would that be a good idea? Who can tell me? Let's see, anyone tell me over here. Okay, Vivek, all right. All right, so we answered that question. Who can tell me? Who can tell me? Who can tell me? Why would getting long? Double bottom, Jade. Jade, you got it. Jade, you're not even a student and you're getting these answers. Okay, good answer. Yes, double bottom. So that would be a high probability location for the next long. So if you break even, right, your next opportunity may be there. And you can now pursue that opportunity without worrying about risk because you're flat. You broke even. And if the market reverses there, now, well, so Johan, it's sort of like a higher low, but the double bottom is the answer. Raman, you got it. The double bottom is the general answer. It could be a higher low, but it's the double bottom, really. I mean, because Johan, you're probably looking at this and saying, well, that's the double bottom. Yes, that's the double bottom. This whole area, this whole region is the double bottom. Okay, think of it that way. Markets are not precise. So this entire area would basically be like a double bottom failed low situation, which is an even higher probability than this. Okay, why? Well, because this area and this low are close in proximity, right? You see how close they are? They're only like maybe a week apart, where the current low, right? This is the swing low over here, what I'm pointing to, and the low before it, you know, going back to here, is more than a few days, right? So you want to see proximity when you're seeing these formations like a double bottom. They should, the bottoms should be close to each other, okay, in terms of time. So that would be your next opportunity. That's why my point here is there's nothing wrong with breaking even, okay? Understand that. So what I've shared with you here is I gave you some scenarios to consider. Right now, this trade, there's nothing to do here, right? There's no reason to go break even. There's no technical reason for that yet, at least based on my system. There's no reason to take profit off the table yet. It's a little early. If you want to, look, that's up to you, but you're not really justifying the risk that you took, right? And you really should let the market justify the risk. If you risk 1,500 points, then you should be at least something close to that, okay, if you're going to start taking money off the table. This is not a counter trend trade, so you don't have to be hypersensitive about it. It's a with the trend trade. So you should be more confident with the long side because Bitcoin is generally bullish. All right, does that make sense to you guys? So I basically went over here the management scenario, right? We reviewed the trade idea. I went over the management scenario, right? What to look for, and if you get a conflicting signal early. Now, keep in mind that conflicting signal can come in a variety of forms. I just showed you like 2 possibilities, but there are many possibilities, right? That can turn bearish and establish a lower high in this area. You don't want to see a lower high. You do not want to see that if you're long. Okay, so that calls for your attention. Don't sit there, don't sit there and be like, well, I'll just hope it works out. Don't do that. You have to be proactive with these trades. These are short-term swing trades, okay? These are not investments. So you need to be proactive and you need to make adjustments. As you can see, it's not hard. You just have to limit your choices. Okay, it's either do I break even? Do I take a partial? Those are your choices. Break even, partial, or do nothing. Those are your choices, okay? Do nothing, of course, is the greatest risk because if it turns around and stops you out, you're out 1,500 points, right? So another key aspect to this whole thing is your sizing, which I'm not going to talk about here, but your sizing needs to take into account how much money is in your account. If you're taking position sizes too big, you can run into problems. You have to keep everything proportional, okay? I have a copy trade set up now where it's only for non-US. US people can't copy these because of, I'm not going to get into all the details why. But if you're non-US, you have the ability to copy. And in that strategy, I call it the micromanager strategy because it's relatively a smaller account, okay? 20K is relatively smaller. It's not like a 100K account or anything. And I'm working with micro lots, okay? And you can see what I'm doing with that. But that's not the same exact strategy here. The point is, it's all, the risk is managed by sizing properly. All right, which is a very important point. So for this type of swing trade strategy that I'm showing you here, this is more for people who have an account that people are not following, right? I would imagine most of you are not putting your trade signals out for people to follow. So in that type of situation, what I described to you in terms of order management is more appropriate for that type of strategy, okay? People take for granted order placement. They just, I use a market order. You can't do that. You have to have a strategy in place for order placement. Order placement is extremely important, okay? Whether it's take profit, placing the stop, or managing with size, like you need to have a plan for that, okay? So, okay, good. So you guys good? All right, so that's my Bitcoin section here. All right, now, I'm going to go over next. I'm going to go over some of your questions. All right. Let me know if you have any questions about this Bitcoin management because this is important for you. You guys have to manage your own trade. So you guys let me know. This is your chance for me to answer those questions. Now, before all of you leave, like I said, before I conclude this stream, I'm going to go over a new swing trade idea. See, I see people leaving. You're going to miss it. I'm going to go over a swing trade idea that the trade scanner called. Okay. I'm going to go over that next, but first I want to answer some questions. So if you want to stick around for that, I'm going to share a new idea and I'm going to talk about that idea in light of Bitcoin, of this Bitcoin trade. So the trade scanner called a trade earlier today, okay? All of you who have access to the trade scanner, all of you have access to that. You know that there's a list of a few altcoins that it called short, okay? So I want to talk about that. I want to address that. And I'm going to share one of those coins and we're going to put the orders together. All right. That's why I asked you guys to remember some of those numbers earlier in the stream. So stick around for that. See people are leaving. I guess you don't want the trade idea. All right. I guess that wasn't working. Okay. So I'm going to go over that trade idea. But first, I just want to answer a few questions. So let's start with Malad over here. He asked me about the S&P. S&P is something you guys should know about anyway. All right, you guys should be checking that all the time. So SPX USD. Let's take a look at this here. And now this market, I have to be honest with you. This market is acting strange. Now, keep in mind, there's also some seasonality here. Okay. Yeah, Johan, right. I mean, people obviously they're not paying attention. I said earlier in the stream, stick around for the whole stream if you want to get the trade idea, but I guess people don't want it. So the S&P has been acting strange. This time of year is generally when you sell, right? Or that for some reason there's a seasonal reason for that. Now, the S&P is not selling. Obviously, there's company reports coming out. This thing is being held up, right? So let's go to the weekly chart here on the S&P because this is important and it can affect Bitcoin. So look at the levels. Look where we are on this thing. Look where we are. Is this a support or a resistance level? I mean, I think that's pretty clear in the chart what that is, right? We are generally lingering at a resistance. Makes it a very tough area to go long stocks. But the problem is this. Usually resistance levels, and this is a weekly chart, resistance levels are often rejected quickly, right? And the problem here is it's not rejecting, all right? It's trying to reject. Look at the previous 2 weeks, okay? Look at these, right? We got these bullish pin bars are actually, because of their location, those are actually bearish, okay? Those are actually considered bearish signals, those candles. But the point is this, we're not selling off, okay? We should be rejecting like this. We should be rejecting. These are weekly candles. We got a little bit rejection, but this market is just being very reluctant. What is up with that? So we have this, which leads me to believe that we may test a little higher. Okay, we may squeeze into here because obviously a lot of people are getting short and the market is not selling off. So whatever is, something is behind this market, something is attempting to hold it up. I don't know what that is, but that's what the chart says. So, you know, it's a tough spot for new longs. You know, if you're looking at day trades, okay, that's one thing. If you're looking at swing trade longs, like the trade scanner calls a lot of longs, be very careful with those longs because this is not an ideal location for longs. The ideal location is here. That's a good place for longs, or at least one of these weekly lows, at least something like that, okay? If you're going to mess around with a long, but you should have low expectations of longs at such a location. That's my point. Okay, so that's the thing with the S&P. I'm actually very open to the short side, all right, because of the location. But this thing may squeeze higher. If this thing starts breaking this level here, which is what, 40, 48, what is that, 40 and a half? Something like that. We start pushing that, this thing may really start moving. What is the high here? Let me see. 41.55. Let me see, what is that high? 41.95. Okay, so 42, 41.74. Right, so 42 is basically the level. This thing starts pushing 42, then we got a party going on here. You know what I mean? And you got to be careful with that because it can easily fake out. You should be very tight on your risk and keep your expectations low. Like, you know how you guys are all quick about taking your profits on Bitcoin? If you're in a stock and you're in a swing trade, you should probably be a little quicker to take your profits because of this location. Okay, does that make sense? And the S&P is a heavyweight, right? And most stocks you compare to the S&P or the NASDAQ. So that's the S&P answer. I hope that helps. If the S&P sells off, it can cause some bearish price action in Bitcoin possibly. There was a correlation. The correlation is all over the place because 1 minute it's there and then it's not, right? So it's not something that you can really depend on, but it's a possibility. So keep that in mind. All right, let me jump over here to YouTube. Let me see what you guys are asking me over here. All right, I think Alex had a question earlier. I'm just going back. I'm going back. Let me see here. All right, so I answered that. Okay, Dom, okay, all right, we're talking about that. Okay, I trade spot only, okay. H-bar, Salta, all right, so if you're still there, Salta, let's take a look at H-bar. By the way, if I miss your question, just put it in the channel again. And if I miss it completely, I apologize. I will just come back next week and I'll answer it. I know you have to wait a week, but or you can send me an email. All right, so here's H-bar. Actually, let me see this. I think that's the wrong symbol. I should probably put USD or USDT after it. All right, the chart's the same. All right, so you're asking about HBAR. Here's the thing with something like this. Again, it's a follower of Bitcoin. It's not a leader, right? You cannot treat this thing as a leader or that it trades on its own. Bitcoin sold off, right? All of these things sold off. That's why the trade scanner is bearish on all the altcoins that it follows and not Bitcoin. So it won't call a Bitcoin short, right? But it called some other ones. We're going to talk about that. So here's the point. You know, you're at this failed low location, just like Bitcoin. It's following Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin could put its rally together and Bitcoin can rally to 30K, then you're likely to see a bounce in this thing, possibly up into this area right here, which is what? 5 cents, 0.0585. Okay, somewhere in that area. That's your next resistance. Right now, you're fooling around at 0.527. So you're looking at like, you know, half a penny, whatever you want to call that, 50 basis points, whatever. Okay, that's what you're looking at. Moving up into that area and possibly a little higher, but I would not be overly optimistic about these coins. First of all, a coin like this is relatively weak. Okay, that's why the scanner has been calling so many shorts. The scanner is good at recognizing relative strength or relative weakness. And this, while this is not one of the coins that the scanner looks at, it does look at Ethereum, and we'll talk about that. But Ethereum was also mentioned in the same way. So if you're thinking long, okay, but it's risky because this would be a counter trend long in terms of this chart. Okay, you could say, well, how is that counter trend? Isn't this the same setup as Bitcoin? It sort of is, except Bitcoin is stronger than this thing, right? This thing has established some resistance here. You have this lower high. It took out this low, and it's acting weak. All right. So if Bitcoin fails and Bitcoin goes to 25K, this thing is likely to push that lower low because you are fighting this bearish momentum. Okay. And if this was structurally stronger, it should be showing a better chart. Like it should never have taken out that support. It should have held that support, but instead it broke. Okay. And you can argue and say, well, look at Bitcoin. Okay. So, you know, Bitcoin, though, you can see Bitcoin is not so weak. It maintained its support, right? It broke barely and it recovered like right away. That's not a support break. Okay. So you have to have that context. This thing broke the support. It's weak. So the longs, you should expect less from. If you're thinking swing trade long, okay, just don't expect a lot from it. Know your resistance levels and be looking to take profits, right, in those resistance levels. If this thing gives you a hard time sooner, you should not give this one a chance because it's not a leader. All right, does that make sense? So that's HBAR. Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that. Okay, let me see my next question here. My next question. Okay, I got Era True. All right, from Russia. Okay, welcome. I'm new to your channel. Okay, no problem, no problem. If you have time to check Micron. All right, stock, sure, Micron. I would imagine you're talking about the stock. Again, thank you for joining from Russia. Okay, so Micron, I believe, is MU. Let's take a look. So obviously, look at that candle, right? Let's take a look at a weekly chart first on Micron. Let's see what's going on with the bigger picture. Right, it's the first thing you should do when you're not really familiar with an instrument or a product. Now, keep in mind, Micron, I believe, is a semiconductor. One of the, I mean, this is an old school stock, right? It's generally going to follow the S&P. As we just talked about the S&P is very reluctant to break lower. I mean, look at the same story, right? Look at this resistance on Micron. So what is that, 65.5? So we can say that Micron is in a very vulnerable area. Don't get confused by this. Oh, it's a higher low. Yeah, it's a higher low, but again, this does not lead the market. This follows the market. The S&P is really the key here. So even if this breaks out a little bit, this is a highly vulnerable area. Not good for longs, in my opinion. Now, if you're talking about a day trade, okay, whatever, that's cool. But if you're talking about bigger picture or especially investing, bad idea at these levels, especially based on where the S&P is, right? So for swing trades and investments, the level that you should be considering is like around this area, okay? Which is what, 57 area, something like that. It should be testing a support and it should hold that support again, or at least produce a higher low, something bullish. And the S&P and NASDAQ should also be doing something more bullish than they're doing right now. I mean, look at this double top. Imagine if you were caught up there. So this is a resistance. It's a low probability area. And you may say, well, what if it breaks out and follows through? It might, but is it worth the risk? Okay, you have to decide how much risk you want to take. In a situation like that, if you're interested in the breakout, for example, I'm not a breakout trader. Okay, now you may be reacting to this and, oh, it's a great candle. This thing is breaking out. If you want to play that game, the best way to compensate for the extra risk you have to take because you're in such a vulnerable location is you trade smaller. Okay, so if you normally trade 100 shares, you trade 25 shares. If this thing fakes out on you, all right, no big deal. Okay, that's how you have to compensate. Size lower in that situation because it's a vulnerable spot. I don't care how great the news is. I don't care what everyone's saying about it, blah, 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 blah. Never listen to other people. Don't even listen to me. Look at the charts, okay? So I hope that answers your question on Micron. All right, thank you for asking. Okay, cool. I appreciate that. Thank you, guys. All right, let me go over here. Let me just see one more question, and then I'm going to give you guys the trade idea. So you guys stuck around for the trade idea? I'm going to give you the trade idea, okay? I have another trade idea that we're going to go over together, and I want you to track this idea. And when we meet next week, we can see how the idea played out. Okay, WTI. Okay, Iwo, send me an email. How do you get the scanner? Send me an email and I'll explain that to you. Okay, the scanner is in my Discord community. You have to be a member there. You can join that for free. There's a link in the description. So join that first, but send me an email, and I can explain that further. I can explain how it works and all that stuff. Okay, I am going to make more instruction on that, but for now it is the way it is. All right, so yeah, it's in my Discord community. There are 2 channels in there that generate ideas, okay, a price, and we're going to go over that next. So thank you for asking. The link is, yeah, so thanks, Johan. Well, no, the link is in the description, okay? You can see the information there, but if you have questions about it, just send me an email. And thank you for asking. Okay, so real quick, before I get into that, I want to show you guys real quick, all right? And so thank you for Micron. You guys should always be in the habit of looking at stuff like this, right? ZN1. What is ZN1? It's a 10-year note. What's going on here in the 10-year note futures? The bonds are big. Everyone talks about the bonds with all this bank failures and nonsense and blah, blah, blah. And it all starts here, okay? Keep an eye on the bond market. Look at the bond market. The bond market is not rallying. It's still stuck in this range, and it looks a little bearish today. What do you think that says about the stock market? Okay, we just finished talking about the stock market at resistance levels. If the bond market sells off, which it's been very slow to do, but if it sells off, that means rates are continuing to rise. That means any potential in the stocks becomes very limited, very limited. Okay, so please keep that in mind. If you want some sort of hint of what's coming or what's on the horizon, check the bond market. All right, so that's what that says. Now, and this is basically a reflection of the dollar. All right, USD. Well, we could take a look at the dollar index. Right, this is a reflection of the dollar. The dollar has been trying to rally, as you can see, but I don't know. This dollar has problems, and if the bond market pulls back, rates rise, that will hold the dollar. Right, the dollar may continue higher, but just keep in mind you have a major support on the dollar right there. And I know there's a lot of bearish talk of the dollar, right? The dollar is going to zero. And if, very soon we're no longer going to be the world reserve currency. There's a lot of overly exaggerated nonsense talk. And it sounds real, but pay attention to the charts, please, okay? If the dollar can hold this support, and then it's not going lower. It's that simple. I don't care what the fundamentals are. Something can change, and whoever really, when you have entities that trade the dollar, or trade the bonds. These are not retail morons. These are banks and governments. They have better information than we do. Okay, so please keep that in mind. All right, and now you want to see oil, right? USD. Now oil has been tricky. I've been watching oil for my management thing, and for my micromanager. I've been watching oil because oil is something I do work with. Okay, and here's the thing: oil is, you got this support in the high 60s, right? This is not exactly a bearish trend anymore. It was kind of bearish going back like 6 months, or it's pulling back. But look, we're in a consolidation on oil. And there's a lower high in these low 70s. If this thing double bottoms, that's at least a swing trade long possibility. Okay, so I wouldn't be overly bearish on oil. Yes, it's a lower high. Theoretically, a lower low should follow this. You know, and oil is very geopolitical sensitive, but look at the higher low developing. If I was short, I would not be happy about this. Okay, so please keep that in mind. That's my quick analysis of oil. So consolidation, near range lows, possible swing trade long. All right, let's get into the trade idea, shall we? The trade idea that I promised you guys. For those guys who stuck it out, I see some people left. That's too bad. They're going to miss the trade idea. So I'm going to show you guys right now. Let's talk about the trade idea. And the trade idea is in Ethereum. Okay? Let's talk about this because it's in conflict with Bitcoin. And so let me explain what took place. The trade scanner called Ethereum a short. And it called it short at like 1844 or something like that. Okay? Right now we're at 1829. Let's see, what's today's high? 1849. Okay, it called it somewhere around there. Maybe you guys can give me the exact, you guys who have access to the channel, maybe you guys can give me the exact number. But it called Ethereum as a short. And I'm like, Ethereum as a short? That doesn't make sense in light of Bitcoin with the Bitcoin long. But I understand why it called it a short. And it's because it's the scanner is focused in on this area right here, pretty much. Okay. And to the scanner, that's bearish momentum. So it's basically looking for a continuation of the bearish momentum, and it does not recognize this location. Okay, that's equivalent to Bitcoin right there. So this general structure is bullish, right? And this thing called the short. So who can give me the exact short price? Can someone tell me the exact Brahmani there, or someone who has access to the channel? It called it short like earlier today. All right, can anyone give me the price? Because what I want to do here is I want to put the trade idea together using the ATR. Now, who can tell me the ATR on Ethereum that I asked you to record earlier? What was the number? Can anyone tell me? You guys take notes? Okay. Okay, cool, Dom. So Chris, I got to do this trade idea now, like I promised everyone. Okay, I love a good all right, so 72, Johan says, for ETH. 72, okay, so that's the average true range, right? Now, who has access to my channel, to the trade scanner? Can someone give me the actual price of the short? I believe it was called earlier today at like noon or something like that, or maybe a little earlier. And the price was something like 1844, right? Can someone give me that price? Or I'm just going to have to work with 1844. I don't see anyone typing it in. Anyone else here? Let's see. Who else here has access? I know Raman, you do. Anyone else? I don't have too many people here with access, I guess. Raman usually gives me the number. All right, no problem. I'm just going to have to guess, but it was something like 1844. So let's put that on the chart here. Okay. All right, let's take a look at this. So 1849 is the high of the candle. Now, this right here is a daily chart, right? Let's go to a 4-hour chart for this idea, all right? Because this is more in the scope of the scanner. Now, what price is this here? 1849, right? So this is 1849. That's 1849 right there. The scanner called for a short. It said, look for sell setups on 1-hour chart and above. That's what the channel says, okay? So, sell setup. What do we have here? Who can tell me? What kind of candle is this that we had on the previous candle? What kind of candle is that? And by the way, so this is in conflict with Bitcoin, right? But what is that? So Bitcoin is acting bullish, but this is not exactly, right? Thank you, Raman. 1814, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Okay, I said 1844. 1814, it called it. Thank you. So 1814, we're just above that now. So it must have called it back on this candle right here. Okay, that's actually the low of this candle. So this is where it called a short. You see that square that I just drew? That's where the scanner called it short. And it said, look for sell setups on a 1-hour or above. So if you go to a 4-hour, like I'm showing you here, okay, you're waiting at this point because you don't just take the trade at that number. Okay, you should wait for a setup. Now, over the next 4 hours, you got that. That's the setup, okay? So you don't have to take 1814. 1814 is the reference point. It's like, okay, this thing is basically, calling for the short, but wait for a confirmation, all right? The robot can't do that part for you. So we have the confirmation, right? And that's this candle right here. We have the confirmation. Now, what's the low of this candle? 1826, all right? So we can use that number. We can use 1814. We can use 1815, a little bit lower than this candle, but that can be our entry. Now, who can tell me how to use the ATR in this situation? Now, we agreed that the ATR is 72. We looked at it earlier, okay? So we have an average true range of 72 points. What's the first thing I should do? Who can tell me real quick? What's the first thing I should do with this information? So I have an idea to go short, which is a conflict with Bitcoin, by the way. Okay, it's conflicts Bitcoin longs. But again, we want to do this on paper, and we want to see how this thing plays out so that next week when we get together, we can talk about this. Okay, so you're seeing a trade, basically. You're seeing how the trade scanner works in, with my perspective on top of it. I programmed the trade scanner, by the way. Okay, so we got all that, right? But we have to use the ATR. The ATR gives us a routine way to come up with all the orders, because the trade scanner does not come up with the orders. It just gives you an entry price. It doesn't give you the stop or the take profit. We have to come up with that on our own. So that's why I suggest using the ATR. So if anyone's been to some of my previous streams, we talk about on this time frame, which is a 4-hour chart, because again, the trade scanner looks for momentum, and that's what we have here on the 4-hour chart, right? We're going to multiply ATR times 2 for our risk, and we're going to multiply, ATR times 2 for the risk, and ATR times 3 for the take profit. That's a 1.5 to 1 reward risk. Now, why times 2? Because it needs more room on this time frame. On the daily time frame, we don't use times 2. We only do it here, right? So Johan says times 3. Yes, you got it. Times 2 for stop. Yes, Johan, he was here at a previous stream. So let's put those numbers on here. So we're going to say the entry for a short is going to be at 18. We'll say, let's give it a little room here. So let's give it the actual scanner price, 1815. Okay, that's the scanner price. That's the price we're going to use now, okay? So the ATR times 2, we agreed that it's 72 is the price of the ATR, right? We talked about that earlier, right? Now, we're going to round that number. Remember that? So we're not going to use 72. What number should I use? Who can tell me? Come on, you guys have to do this work. We're going to round the number. I know it may sound a little confusing, but you guys need to get through this. This is actually not very hard. Just have to do a little work here. So we're going to round that number. We're going to round it higher. So what number are we going to use? And why do we want to round it anyway? We're not going to use 72. No, see, you round lower. No, that's wrong. You round higher. You give it more room. We're going to use 100. It's a round number, okay? So if it's 72, 71, 80, round the number to 100. Go to a straight, clean, round number. If you want to use 80, okay, I would use 100. It gives it a little more room, okay? A little more room is better. So what's 100 points from this entry? So let's see, 1815, that would put us at 1915, right? So let's put that on the chart here. Man, that's way up here. Okay, 100 points. All right, so it's a little higher than our 8. Well, so we're going to round it, and then we're going to multiply it times 2. That's 200 points. I know it's getting a little confusing here, but that's 200 points, right? So ATR times 2 would be 200. So if we're at 1815, that puts us at 2015. Man, I really have to zoom out here for that, right? So 2015 is all the way here, right? So our stop goes there, okay? Now look where that is. So chances are, I mean, this thing has no business going up there, first of all. And second of all, it doesn't mean we have to take that stop. It's just a point of reference. We're going to move the stop. Remember, like I said earlier, we go into this planning to move the stop, but we need an initial point That's our initial point. You see that? That's ATR times 2. And we round. Now, if you don't want to round and you want to use a 140-point stop, okay. You want to use a 150-point stop, okay. This is a 200-point stop. Does this make sense so far? Okay, this may be confusing for some people, but this order placement part is the whole key to using the scanner. Okay, so are we okay with the stop? Are we okay with that? So we're going to use a 200 for the record, all right, and for so that we can check on this as a group next week. We're going to use a 200-point stop. All right, so 1815 is the entry for a short on paper. 2015 is going to be the initial stop, which we plan to move if this trade becomes favorable. Okay, especially if it goes 1-to-1. You guys following me so far? Now, so we're going to multiply that number now times 3, 100, which is the ATR that we round to. 100 times 3 is 300. So we're looking for 300 points on the short side. That might be a little tough for this thing, but those are our initial orders. So what's 1815 minus 300, right? It's going to be 1515, right? Right? So let's see here. 1515, man, I really got to close up the chart. These are more in line with the daily time frame. 1515 is right here. Okay? You see that? You guys following me? Yes or no? That is our take profit on this short. These are our initial levels. So your risk is defined, your take profit is defined. Now, it doesn't mean that the market is going to reach these levels. Now, earlier, I showed you how to manage that Bitcoin situation, right? So for this short, you would manage it the same way. If this thing starts selling off, okay, and if it goes 1-to-1, which would be, what was that, 200 points? If it's 200 points your way, you're at break even. Now, again, you don't have to use 200. If you want to use a lower number, that's up to you. But again, we're doing this on paper, okay? We're not going to take this for real. But this is a trade called by the trade scanner, and we want to see, does this thing offer any profit potential at all? Maybe this thing only goes 100 points before it turns around, okay? And maybe you have a chance to get out for 50 points possibly, all right? These numbers may seem a little out of range, but we're using the ATR. If I was going to manually pick the numbers, they would probably not be the same as these numbers. The point of using the ATR is to have a routine way to come up with proportional take profit and stop loss orders that are within reason of the market movement. Okay, they're relative to the market movement. That's where the average true range comes from. Okay, it's relative to the way these candles are moving. And we're multiplying the number. We round the number and we multiply it to give it a little more room because markets are not perfect. Okay, so we have our orders, right? Entered to go short, 1815. Stop loss, 2015. Take profit, 1515. Okay, those are the orders. Write those orders in your notebook. Take them on paper. And then when we meet next week, we will take a look and see how the Ethereum trade worked out, what kind of profit potential it offered, if any. Or what kind of management choices could we have made, as the week continues, to unfold here. All right, it makes sense, you guys? Okay. So anyway, guys, if I missed your question, I apologize very much. Look, I'm on here every Monday at 3 p.m. I'm supposed to be on here. So you can check me out then. If you haven't done so yet, please press the like button. Please press the subscribe button. Please press the boost button. Do me that favor so you can help my videos here on YouTube. I plan to make more educational content to help you guys out. Otherwise, if you have any other questions, you know where to find me. Mark Pre-Markets. Just send me an email there and I can answer your questions. Also, make sure to check the links in the description. Okay, you guys. So thank you guys. It's been a great session. I hope you guys got something out of it. Enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your evening, wherever you are in the world. And thank you very much for watching.